Yes, and we are continuing with Donald Trump. The backlash against Donald Trump has gone international after his call to ban Muslims from entering the U.S. and Israel. The reaction has been fierce, especially in light of Trump's intentions to visit this month here. Meanwhile, with all the focus on the Republican presidential frontrunner, Congress quietly voted to tighten restrictions on the country's visas waiver program. Elio Chomrok, diplomatic correspondent for the News Today, has more.
Donald Trump has long been a hard-working headline machine, but the latest storm, him calling to ban the entry of all Muslims to the U.S., seems to have sparked his biggest controversy yet. But Donald, being Trump, shows no signs of regret.
Somebody in this country has to say what's right. There are people that have tremendously bad intentions. We have to be tough, we have to be smart, and we have to be vigilant.
It is almost impossible to keep track on the amount of condemnations Trump received within the U.S., including from the White House, and also from way beyond American borders.
The Trump campaign for months now has had a dustbin of history-like quality to it, from the vacuous sloganeering to the outright lies, to even the fake hair, the whole carnival barker routine that we've seen for some time now. And the fact is that what Donald Trump said yesterday disqualifies him from serving as president.
The cyclone named Trump is heading to Israel by the end of the month, where he'll likely meet a certain other person with experience of controversial pre-election statements.
המצביעים הערבים מגיעים בכמויות אדירות לקלפי.
Unlike Trump, Netanyahu was quick to apologize for his remarks, but the confirmed meeting between the two has raised an uproar among Israeli lawmakers. 37 of them sent a letter to Netanyahu Wednesday, urging him to cancel his meeting with Trump in light of his racist statements. Arab parliamentarian Ahmed Tibi wrote on Twitter that he asked the parliament speaker to ban the, quote, neo-Nazi Trump from entering the parliament. Another Arab MP, Sawi Frej, went even further, saying he asked the Interior Minister to ban Trump from entering the country. The drama, however, doesn't stop there. According to a Jerusalem Post report, Trump is weighing the option of visiting the incredibly sensitive Temple Mount Al-Aqsa compound, a flashpoint of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The visit is certain to further exacerbate the already high tensions. But if there's one thing the presidential hopeful seems not to fear, it's drama.
Wow. Whoa. That is some group of people.
Yes, and with me here in the studio to understand a little bit more about, can we understand a little bit more about Donald Trump? But we want to. Owen Alterman, Research Institute for National Security Studies, good evening.
Good evening.
Mark Tell, co-chair of Republicans Abroad Israel, good evening.
Lucy, always a pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure having you here.
Even when Donald Trump is on the agenda.
This is what we are going to talk with you about right now. I'm Mohammed Al-Qasim, I-24 News correspondent and analyst. Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to start with you, Mr. Tell.
Well,
you hear Donald Trump, and as a Republican, you say what? That's it, this is the red line, and come on, just step down. And
first of all,
enough is enough.
I said enough is enough before he made this outrageous comment. I was in Washington last week at the Republican Jewish Coalition Presidential Forum. I heard him insult the audience there and make some stupid remarks about Israel. I mean, let me just say, the man had an important influence on the race thus far. He energized the base. He's gotten the public interested. They're watching the Republican debates like nothing else. The Democrats can't even come close in terms of the public interest in the candidates. And we have a lot of candidates, 14 right now. And he's on the top of the pack right now, but not very much. In fact, he's lost his lead in Iowa, and he's dropping. I don't know how long that will last, but my guess is that it will continue this way. Now, the time has come for the public to make up its mind about this. In about a month and a half, we're actually going to start voting. None of these beauty pageant polls anymore. We're going to have real votes. And at that time, I think we're going to see that they're going to vote for real candidates, and not for people that are just all about themselves, demagoguery and megalomania, whatever it is, just talking about themselves and not really understanding the issues, and making a lot of silly, in fact, dangerous comments like this one that he just made. But even before he made that, I said, that's enough. It's time for him to go on back to the benches, and let's go on with the election.
And the Republicans are worried for a good reason, Mark, because of course, Donald Trump is the front runner. Donald Trump is leading in the Republican race. But if we are taking the national polls, we are seeing that he's back, just stepping back, or waiting back after Hillary Clinton. And this is giving her a lot of points, a lot of good points in the race.
She's a weak candidate, and I'll tell you, I can't wait till we actually get into that race. But we've got a long ways to go before we go there. But look, she leads Trump in the polls, but she's behind Marco Rubio. And she's behind Chris Christie, who's way down in our list. So she's basically tied with Ted Cruz and a couple others. So even Ben Carson is more or less neck and neck with her in the national polls. So she's got her own problems. We'll deal with that when the time comes. But the Republican Party's got a bunch of really good candidates, and I heard them in Washington. I think it's going to be a great race. So
let's join just before we'll listen to both of you. Let's join to this conversation Omer Bar-Lev, member of the Knesset for the Zionist Union. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
Mr. Bar-Lev, you suggested today that Mr. Donald Trump should not enter the parliament, the Israeli parliament, and be given the stage to speak. And this is why, in from your point of view?
First of all, right now, Mr. Trump is a candidate. He's not the president of the United States. And as a private person, of course, he can come to Israel. Israel is a free country. But I think getting to our parliament and having the ability to speak there, it says, from our point of view, that we agree to some of his last racist declarations. And I think that Israel itself has a problem regarding racism, and we are dealing with that. And I think that the leaders of Israel should be the compass of Israeli citizens regarding racism.
Yeah.
And therefore, I don't think...
Yes, Mr. Bar-Lev, we're hearing Benjamin Netanyahu saying today that although he doesn't agree with what Donald Trump said, he is going to meet him. So we are talking about the leader of the state of Israel.
Yes, I think it's a mistake. I understand that this meeting was scheduled 2 weeks ago, but the situation has changed.
Yes.
And Mr. Trump came up with his declaration regarding Muslims entering to the States a day ago, and immediately after that saying that he's coming to Israel. And I think that, as I said before, according to my point of view, Israel's leaders and our president, I think, gives us a very good example in his fight against racism in Israel. And I think that our Prime Minister should join him, and all of our MKs in the Knesset should join as well.
Mr. Omer Bar-Lev, thank you very much for this. Owen?
Well, first of all, Lucy, Mohammed, if you ever wanted to go to Times Square, been there. Go soon. Well, maybe you've been to Disney World. Yeah? I don't know. Michigan's a nice place. That's where I'm originally from.
But I'm asking myself if they will let me in next week.
Well, you can beat Donald Trump before he gets into office. No, look, Donald Trump is a huge disappointment. I mean, this is one of the most talented politicians in terms of raw talent to come on the American scene in a generation. He's someone who has tapped into something, who has talked about some really important substantive issues that elites have ignored, whether that be campaign finance reform, whether that be trade, whether that be mass unregulated immigration, that are real issues. And then he just lets his campaign get sunk down. Not really get sunk down. He's taking an active role in it himself. He's leading it in just baseless racism. And I just think it's a real tragedy, because this is someone who had a lot that could have contributed to American politics, and instead he's just dragging American politics through the mud. And there are implications for Israel in terms of what our prime minister and parliament should do with this person in another 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, there is mud and there is dirty mud, and this mud is very, very dirty. Mohammed Al-Qasim.
Trump did raise issues.